It's been more than 1 year I have this light, and I have to admit I was not exactly right in some cases about how this is being used. So this video will serve as long-term review, but let's be honest, I haven't been using this for a whole year, just beginning of December and now a few months in October, November and December here. So it's not exactly 1 year usage. With that said, we will cover a few of details about the uses of this one, as well as how well it is actually compatible with the mount which comes to Syncros IC integrated cockpit. That was the actual reason where I was failing in the beginning. So we will see about that. First things first, about the light itself. It works great. It's pretty strong, even though I have a headlamp as well when I'm going into the forest. Without it, it won't be a problem. The only problem is maybe the time, how long it might last. So if you are going in deep of the forest and you are going more than 1 hour and a half with maximum capacity, it might last 1 hour and a half. Good thing is that it does not thermally, it just shuts down. It automatically jumps to light saving mode and basically just lights pretty low, and then you can just reach your home. But definitely always keep in mind that having additional light is beneficial, especially if you're going into a forest, because there were a few times when both of my lights went down into that service mode, and then I had not very hard time, but not something which I would want to repeat. Thankfully I was not far away. The light works great. About the light indicator, there could be said few things. Basically, because you're going underneath the handlebars, you don't actually see the status of it. The only thing, when you will figure out that it's going down, then you will see that it's not shining that bright. The indicator on the light shows you how much juice it has left. When it shows blue, it means you still have a lot of time. When it shows green, it's still good. And then it goes down into either a yellow, and then the last resort is red. At first, once you charge it, it just shows green. But once the light is being used for a while, that color of a button showcases you how much time is left in that mode if you're continuing using it. Those few modes are great. I definitely not using this one, nor this one which blinks depending on the surrounding lights. It's just useless in my opinion. And then the strongest, middle one and the lightest. So light itself is great, everything is good with that, but you probably wonder what the hell is this. So I will explain it in a bit. The reason why you see this on the light itself is because when you put it underneath the handlebars, there is slight possibility that it will hit your frame. So it's just an extra precaution that it won't happen. And the reason why is this as it is because I don't have proper mount. This one is easily removable by pressing this button. Very useful when you want to charge it, for example. You can just remove this and put the light charging without actually messing around with the bolt and the fitment on the bike. But now let's just jump into that fitment part. Because I have a lot of Garmin mounts and accessories, I'm just using them in order to offset the light from the frame. But basically I'm using Garmin mounts and those accessories to offset the light. In such scenario, we have few centimeters off from the frame, and that's pretty much enough. Actually, I never stumble across situations where it hits the frame, but that double-sided adhesive tape is just to make sure that it works without chance of doing anything to the frame. The reason why I said that I was not exactly transparent last year is because on the thumbnail you can see this IC handlebars, and the light was connected straight under this mount. The problem was that at the time there was no fork, and that means I just hang those handlebars on the bike. Also, when I did some testing, I used this rotor mount on the handlebars on my hardtail. It offset quite a lot from the frame and I had zero problems with that. So this mount, it went simply as with anything, was like this, but once I crashed, I broken down this mount and it's no longer usable. So for that reason, I'm using our GoPro mount, and I just stick it with this pin into the holder on the handlebars. Basically, GoPro mounts has helped me to make that fitment from one bike to the other. It's also easily removable when the bolt is here. So what's the problem with a Syncros mount? I will show you in a moment. Basically, when you're using GoPro mount, which has GoPro accessory, I had an impression that it should be more than enough to use it on the bike. Maybe on yours, if you have integrated handlebars and you have longer stem, virtual stem, if you have 10 degrees and 9 centimeters, for example, then you might be good enough to go with this Syncro alone. But in this case, it's not possible, and I'm using it this way. This one goes into the Garmin mount, and then on top of that, I connect the light. So it's two-way connection. Here is one, and here is the other. So it's two pieces. However, there are some accessories from Syncros which you can implement in this setup. Those accessories are available to purchase separately, but because I just had all those Garmin stuff, it was not needed for me, and you can see that it's not feasible to connect it. Actually, you could potentially try to, but then you won't have the angle needed. And no, actually you won't be able to. So with -20 and 10 centimeters of virtual stem, it's not possible to mount Syncros Nanaimo light on Syncros mount with GoPro. So keep that in mind, get that accessory extender if you need to, and then it will be all fine. So the takeaways of this video is to make sure to have additional extender from Syncros if you're using original mount. Our way around could be replacing this one for actually using Garmin mount. So either it's from the top or from the bottom, I don't actually really know, but you just remove this part and you add the light here, and then you could just add additional mount for the Garmin on top of your headset bolt. Personally, like when it's in front, and for that reason I'm just using those additional legs. My best suggestion would be to get that long enough extender in front, so that way you won't have any problems for the light hitting first and most importantly frame, as well as it won't hit any of those cables. So that's something to keep in mind. But nonetheless, the light is great, the body is great, and you can actually see some scratches here on the frame from the cables and from the shields, but it's nothing major. The light does its job properly. I will also add a few clips so you could just make sure that I'm not lying. Shines pretty good, especially it looks good when outside there is snow, so that way there are additional reflections and you are just enjoying the riding. And probably the best thing which I like about this light is that it spreads the light very nicely and there is no strict shapes on the ground when it's shining. So that's the main thing I like about it. Maybe the only downfall is the time it can last at the high mode, but more or less majority of the lights which are strong enough lasts around 1.5 hours at the maximum capacities. Because this one is not being used very often and not daily, I can't compare whether the battery lasts as well as it was in the beginning, but nonetheless it still works pretty much great, and I have no other complaints about the mount itself, specifically for Garmin. And if you're using it for any other bike, if you have any mount in front, then it's great. Other way around, you can put it on the handlebars, the original mount which comes with a light, but actually I have no idea where I put it. Maybe I threw it away accidentally, but anyways, I still able to connect it even with some hacks which are not too much pretty, but in the dark no one sees anything, so